Today on XboxerBriefs, we take a brief look at a 2D run-and-gun shooter with a Metroid-like spin to it on the Xbox. Yes, you heard that right. This is BlowOut. Let's go.
Look, your wife's not here. It's okay to look at the map.
You ever have one of those moments in a game store where you're looking through the shelves and you see a game that you're entirely unfamiliar with? Even with what I consider to be a better than average grasp on the Xbox library, it happened to me here, so I had to pick up BlowOut a couple weeks ago just out of curiosity as to what it was I was looking at. At first glance, I will say I was nervous about this one upon firing it up, since the game engine logo here looks like something a high school student would do for their first animation project. Not a good sign. In a clear take on the Predator, you play as Space Marine Marshall Kane, who prefers his nickname Dutch. He's been redirected to an outworld defense platform known as the Honor Guard, which has been reportedly taken over by experimental genetic horrors which seem to have killed off generations of clone workers that had been inhabiting the station.
Honor Guard went dark after its crew issued quarantine warnings 2 weeks back. Not a word since. Red ran a bioscan while I psyched up to board the Honor Guard. Lots of activity, Red says. None of it human. Xenos, he means. Make your worst nightmares look like Candyland.
At first glance, the gameplay felt different for Xbox, but familiar. Corridors and elevators give the vibe of ship environments in a Metroid game, or even variations on something like Doom. Even down to the map. How is this not Metroid? Dutch can aim his gun in all directions using the right analog stick, firing with the right trigger. Dutch is also equipped with a jetpack controlled by the left trigger in place of any kind of jump, so you'll be using this quite a bit to traverse the vertical corridors and gaps in the floors. Much like Metroid or Doom, there are doors impeding your progress, which will require a colored key to unlock or locating a panel to release the lock. Only your eye in the sky, who goes by Red, who is almost constantly chattering in your ear, seems to know exactly where these things are, and will update your map to tell you what room you need to go to acquire or unlock your next progression. And while I appreciate being given the next place to explore, it kind of takes away from the fun of just having to look around. But even with the map, there's still potential to get lost easily, and you may find yourself having to keep checking in to see where you're at, or when to change direction to find the next key or computer panel. The audio department is quite prominent throughout the game, with a fair amount of dialogue between Dutch and Red.
Coordinates of the network control panel.
I'll jump right on it, like prom night.
Too much info, Kane.
Roger that, Red. Roll it out.
And frequent prompts from the Honor Guard's security system.
Please refrain from smoking in the elevator.
Some of it's funny, while some of it feels a little adolescent, but what do you expect? Dutch embodies a lot of the macho action protagonist tropes that his namesake implies. Outside of dialogue, the music will pick up during combat sequences, but is generally not memorable. The guns themselves have a unique sound, and will make up pretty much the rest of the sound in this game because you'll be firing them a lot. Weaponry is acquired through exploration, having to break these large canisters to free new weapons, which include a flamethrower, shotgun, nail gun, grenade launcher, pretty standard fare for a sci-fi-like shooter. Enemies vary from these swarms, walking piranhas, and these flying wasp-looking guys, up to larger mutants who tend to be a little more aggressive and need your best firepower to take down. Each level, and there are 10 in total, is highlighted by a larger boss, which turns the gameplay almost into one of the base levels from Contra, and now you're firing into the background instead of side to side. The bosses usually have a weak spot that Red will mention as the boss fight begins, like in this one. You'll have to fire consecutive shots into the mouth of each of these 3 enemies to do damage to them individually, while simultaneously dodging spikes and acid attacks. I found the difficulty of this game to spike with the bosses. Thankfully, they respawn you just outside the boss room if you happen to die. But it's in this moment that I want to talk to you about the cheats menu. It's just staring at you right there, and I'm just going to say it. You're going to have a much better time with this game if you just punch in and toggle on a few of these and just go nuts. May I recommend No Pain, No Cane, Charlie Hustle, Overdressed Romeo, and Fish in a Barrel. You won't regret it, and you can disable them if you don't want them on anymore. Another piece of advice, when I first started this game, the overall brightness was way down by default, and I found I was having a hard time deciphering which walls, floors, and ceilings could be broken. Bump that up to at least halfway immediately, or you're going to have a rough time, like trying to read a book by moonlight. Just trust me. BlowOut does some things that I didn't expect out of a game available for Xbox, but doesn't necessarily do it well. The 2D environment feels like a blend of Doom 3 and Metroid, but the platforming is kind of weak, and your only option to leave the ground being your jetpack. You may find that you use it only in scenarios where you absolutely need to be elevated. Generic enemies are varied in appearance, but for the most part take a few shots to eliminate, with the spikes in difficulty around bosses and the potential to get lost while exploring being the two biggest annoyances to the game. From a collector's standpoint, BlowOut isn't exclusive to the system, but it's not backwards compatible on any other Xbox console at this time, so you'd be best served to grab it on the cheap, play it on your original Xbox if this sounds like something you'd be interested in. If you enjoyed this review, be sure you're subscribed so you know when the next one drops, and hit that like button. It really helps YouTube know that it'd be a great one to share with other Xbox fans. And if you ever want to chat with me about Xbox, I'll occasionally stream a late evening gameplay session that I use for these videos live on Twitch, and a link to my channel over there can be found in the description below. Hope to see you in a chat sometime soon. That should about do it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.